All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the World Population Day 2025 high-level regional webinar, which is entitled People Power, Potential, Youth at the Heart of Demographic Resilience. So my name is Lakmo Benson Pamitzai, and I'm the current Vice President for AfriYan ESA, and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's powerful conversation. So we are thrilled to have participants joining us from across Eastern and Southern Africa, and we are happy to have you all. So to kick off things, let's light up the chat. Please greet us in your local language and tell us where you are joining from, whether it's Mulibwanji, Salibonani, Habari Zenu, Saubona, or Oshikambo. We want to free the energy. We want to feel the energy of our region. But before we dive in, just a few quick reminders to help us all have a smooth and engaging session. Please make sure that you use the chat to share your thoughts, your reactions, as well as your reflections throughout this session. We also have a Q&A session, so feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box at any time. And let also be respectful, let us be inclusive, and let us also be supportive. So this is a safe space for all voices. So this webinar is proudly brought to you by Youth Power Hub, which is a regional platform that brings together youth-led organizations and networks to drive policy influence, innovation, and accountability on the issues that matter to young people. So YPH is all about amplifying youth voices, co-creating solutions, and ensuring that young people are not just participants, but leaders in shaping Africa's future. So a big thank you to our organizers. We have Youth Power Hub, which comprises of AfriYan and YACT and UNFPA ESARO. We also have UNESCO for bringing us together. And of course, thank you all for joining us from across the region. So World Population Day is more than a date, but it's a moment to reflect on how population dynamics shapes our lives, our future, and our development goals. So with that in mind, let me hand over to Lillian for the remarks on the significance of World Population Day and demographic resilience. Lillian, over to you.
Thank you so much. And please confirm with a thumbs up that you can hear me. Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to this amazing and very fast webinar on demographic resilience. My name is Lillian Wamboi. I am from YACT Youth in Action and coordinating the Youth Power Hub project. And I'm here with my team of Sharon, Egan, and of course the UNFPA team with Meron and Mr. Frederick, who we shall be having this webinar to really look into the changes that are going on right now in terms of demographics and of course the challenge that there is right now on fertility. Mr. Frederick Okwaya from UNFPA will be shedding a light on just the state of the world population report that was commissioned by UNFPA, and for us to have a granular look at how these changes are affecting us, especially for us as young people in Africa. We do know that over 65% of the population in Africa is below the age of 25. That's a very, very big number, and it's important that we harness the agency of this population in Africa. We must be the ones to curate our own solutions for the challenges that are there. And it's important that young people are meaningfully engaged as we continue just really being resilient and adaptive as this demographic shifts. So I thank you all for taking time on this Friday afternoon. You could have been shopping, you could have been somewhere else, but you've taken your time to join us. And we really, really appreciate and thank you. So please feel free to engage with us on the chat. You can chat with us in English, in Portuguese, and French. We are very responsive and we are multilingual, so feel at home and thank you. And in Kenya, we say karibu sana, and we are very grateful that you're here with us. Over to you, Lakmo, for the next presentation. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Lillian. Just another reminder that we also have interpretation. So you can also choose the language that you feel comfortable following this conversation in. So we have, if you look down on your functions, there is a globe-like which is written interpretation down there. You can find the language that suits you. So to unpack the findings of this year's State of the World Population Report and what they mean for our region, let us welcome Mr. Frederick Okwayo from UNFPA. Mr. Frederick Okwayo, over to you.
Yeah, morning, good afternoon. Thank you, moderator Lakmo. It's a pleasure to be welcomed as UNFPA and to talk about the State of the World Population Report. I work for UNFPA in the regional office as a regional advisor for population and development. And therefore, it really gives us a great pleasure to engage with the young people, because just like the previous presenter did mention, indeed, young people constitute almost 70% of our population. So we don't take you lightly. But having said that, UNFPA being the SRH agency, we do commission a report every year so that we have a deeper reflection on what are some of the population issues in the world. And therefore, during the year 2025, UNFPA has actually worked together and really come up with a report. And the report talks about the real crisis in the real fertility crisis, because indeed, we are living in a world which is differentiated. We have the developed world where the fertility levels are actually declining, but also we have the world where the fertility rates are still high, but indeed they are actually declining. So every year we do have the theme of the year, and therefore we publish a report to really reflect on these population challenges in the world. So I would encourage everybody after this presentation or after this discussion that if you have the opportunity, then you could read through the report. So let's go to the next slide. So ideally, the theme of this year's report is reproductive agency in a changing world. And what does it mean? I think we know that fertility rates are high in many countries, but that the population is actually still increasing, because at the same time, we know that global fertility rates are declining. So even in countries with high population rates, like most of our countries where we come from, we do ask, will population decline happen in our countries? And already within our region, we are having those countries like we have Seychelles, Mauritius, Eswatini, but also Botswana, which are actually asking, they want to increase their population rates, but then because of the circumstances is not possible. So the whole question is family planning to be blamed? And how can they reverse these trends? Like, for example, in Seychelles and Mauritius. So it is actually good to note that we've gotten some resistance. That is to say that fertilities have continued to decline. But here in this graph, you can see that as much as we from this graph, you can see that the projections which were made in 2013, fertility levels were much higher according to the green dots. But then when you look at the UN projections in 2024, they are actually declining. So the whole issue is the policymakers are actually more or less alarmed that this is a crisis, as much as all efforts are being put to make sure that the fertility levels remain constant or are improved in some of the areas, but then they continue to be declining. So the next slide. So this slide actually talks about some of what the policymakers and the media are actually asking. And the whole issue is, the whole question is, why are women and young people failing to have children or failing to marry. And you can see, like in North Korea, whereby they were saying that no sex, no babies, South Korea's emerging feminist, they are actually rejecting the marriage. When you look at the lower part of it, you say the Kenyans are saying no to motherhood and yes to sterilization. So a lot of Kenyans, or some pockets of the Kenyans, are actually saying they do not have the motherhood, but actually they are saying yes to sterilization. Then at the same time, some of them are also saying that any woman who does not say she's happy to be childless is actually a liar and a fool. So we have different contexts that are coming, but I think the whole issue is that the whole there are different notions to this. But we at UNFPA know that in a woman's life or everyday lived lives, there are too seldom to be able to exercise true and hindered reproductive choices. So while people do indeed have more reproductive choices than ever before, but I think the whole issue is that we have a lot of modern contraceptive options and also international standards for comprehensive sexual education. That is just something to really choose from. So let's go to the next slide. And also the next, because these are just some of the quotations that you can see. So because of all these issues about declining fertility, UNFPA did commission a study and we partnered with an organization called the YouGov, whereby a survey on the UNFPA youth reproductive choices was actually done in about 14 countries. Out of these countries were actually categorized based on their total fertility rate. Those with a TFR of below 1.5, those between 1.5 and replacement level, which is 2.1, and then those above the fertility replacement level, which happen to be in Africa, that is Morocco, South Africa, and Nigeria. So this survey was actually done. And this is an original survey, and we wanted to really get an understanding on what is the perception of fertility desires, expectations, but also barriers, and enable us to reproductive choices in all these countries. So it is important to note that this survey has helped us in terms of an in-depth shaping of our opinion, but also knowing what is really happening. So in addition to this, we are also doing a survey in about 50 countries. That is the UNFPA Youth Reproductive Choices Survey that will be launched much earlier, and it will carry a lot more information on this fertility crisis. So let's go to the next slide just quickly. So in the next slide, out of these 14 countries, we asked the respondent about the ideal number of children that they would want to ask. And here the respondents were divided into two. There were those who did not have children, and there are those who had already the children. So those who didn't have the children were asked, or if you could choose the number, the exact number of children you would like to have in your time, in your lifetime, how many would you ideally have? And those who are parents and were over maybe 50 years of age, they were asked if they went back to the time before they gave birth, how many children would they have? That is the ideal number of children. So the key message from this graph basically is that in every country surveyed, even those with the lowest fertility levels, most people want really children. So the proportion of those wanting 0 children, that is in green, is very small. that is very small. And when you look at in Africa, South Africa, you talk of Morocco and you talk of Nigeria, it is even much smaller. So everybody wants children, including even the countries with very low fertility levels. But then also overall, most people want 2 or more children, ideally. So this is really the ideal number of children that everybody wants by the countries which were selected. And let's go to the next slide. So the next slide actually talks about the difference between respondents' ideal or expected or achieved number of the children. So when you are doing the DHS or all these surveys, there's always the ideal number of children you want, and also there is the achieved fertility rate. So here, what is coming out that is that in overall, 18% believe that they will not have the ideal number of children that they want. So it is quite important to actually think about that. But also 11% think that they will have fewer children that they want, and only 7% think that they will have more children. So having the ideal number of children and the desired number of children has been quite important, because from this survey, 43% did not have the ideal number of children that they want. It was either a few or actually more, but in most cases it was more. And 31% had fewer children than ideal, and actually 12% had more. That is what the results actually shows. So the key message here is that in all these countries, regardless of the total fertility rate, there is evidence of both overrealization and underrealization of the fertility ideals. So what is revealing the real crisis in all these aspects. So let's go to the next slide. So what is really coming out from this survey is that it is not overpopulation and it is not underpopulation, but actually the global crisis is the reproductive agency. So what does it mean? Reproductive agency is the ability to make reproductive choices under enabling conditions. It requires a wide range of political, social, and economic conditions to enable true free choices, so that it is also the pathway towards full realization of reproductive health. So like in Africa, do we really have all these political ranges, social and economic conditions that could enable us to be able to do that? And basically, from this survey, what really came out is that the respondents were given 14 possible factors that could also provide, but they were also asked to provide their own. So what really came out from this survey is that about half of the respondents say that economic conditions would likely lead to or had led to having fewer children. So I think the main factor here is because of the condition, the economic condition, they cannot get the ideal number of children that they would want, and that is why they are having much fewer number of children. The other barriers actually include about quarter of the respondents highlighted health issues. These are infertility, maternal health barriers. We have the chronic issues, but also about 20% said that they feared about the world, but also the future. These are politics, wars, and the pandemic. And about 14% say that they lack a partner or as a lack of a suitable partner. So I don't know how this really resonates with the young people, because the main factors actually being highlighted here is economic, is health, but also the availability of the desired really partner. Let's go to the next slide. And actually, the next slide then talks about some of the policy options that this report highlights. But it also talks about the barriers to avoiding an intended pregnancy, which are more or less the same as the barriers to starting a family are often the same. These are the economic issues, the gender discrimination, but also lack of support from partners and communities, and low quality sexual and reproductive healthcare system. These are some of the things which were highlighted, and also about fear about the future. So this I've highlighted, and therefore let's go to the next slide. So the next slide actually talks about the current policy approaches which are considered to be inadequate. And I think the first one talks about the that most of the governments tends to focus on moving fertility in one direction, because even within Africa, we are much more preoccupied by really wanting to promote contraception to lower fertility, and yet within some of the groups, that is not really the whole issue. So we need to look at a more holistic approach, but also provide a bit of the level of support which is not sufficient. Also, the report talks about some of the models which are being used in the Nordic countries, which are more or less failed in nature. So, some of the options which are being proposed are, first of all, that we need to look at the health care policies. That is in terms of providing a full range of affordable, quality, accessible reproductive health services to be everywhere, so that they are not just there in the urban areas or in the big cities, but actually they need to be almost everywhere. We also need to have the fertility care for everybody who needs it, because as it is not really affordable to most of the countries. And also, these policies need to be much more inclusive, including even those people like the same-sex marriages, but also the disabled population. All of them need to be considered. The other policies that are also being talked about, we can go to the next, which are the economic policies, is in terms of the healthcare. Yeah, in terms of the healthcare, they need to be available, affordable, but also quality in terms of the opening hours to be aligned to the parenting working schedule. We also need to really talk about supporting youth transition to adulthood, and also family-friendly working environment. I think these are some of the things that the publication talks about, and they resonate with us, including the young people, because as you want to start your families, these are quite important, and you'll have to consider them. Then lastly is the whole issue about the education and information. Just the slide. And there we are talking about the comprehensive sexuality education, which is inclusive of the fertility awareness and biased, medically accurate information is needed for the out of youth population, but also education system that can better accommodate families. Because insofar as we are concerned, most of our education systems are not really addressing those issues. So let's go to the next slide. And I think the last slide talks about the next. Just linking all this with the ICPD, which is actually the the program of action that coordinates all this reproductive and health work. So we are supposed to really link all these things with family-sensitive policies in the field of housing, work, health, and social security. Also, it is important just to encourage the participation of women and men in all areas of family, and also household responsibilities, including family planning, child rearing, and household work. Also, family leave for men and women so that we can have much more choices regarding the balance of work at the family level. But also family health. And I think lastly is more to do with the laws and policies that actually reflects the plurality of the forms of what the family can take, so that we don't just concentrate on more or less declining the fertility, but also improving it. And the need for assistance for the third parties in order to help the parents to reconcile their work with the family work lives. So this is what the report talks about, but I think in much more sense, it's just saying we are at crossroad when it comes to fertility, because in a nutshell, the ideal fertility is not being met, but what are some of the challenges? The challenges relate to economic, to social, but also to health as aspects. So I would stop there, and really, being that the young people are more or less the one that are joining the family cycles, but also would want to have their fertility or their families and the children, it would be interesting to really go through this and look at how the world is going, especially the developed world, where they are trying to improve their fertility, but then all what they can do, they are not really succeeding in that. So thank you, and let me hand over to the moderator, Lakmo, for the other sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okwayo, for that insightful overview. It was really a great presentation indeed. So now we want to hear how us as young people are reacting to these findings. So next up, allow me to invite Sharon from YACT, who is going to guide us through our youth reflections using Menti. So this is our chance to share our thoughts and see what other young people across the region are saying. Sharon, over to you.
Apologies, Lakmo, for that. I was trying to set up the Menti. So while we're at it, maybe Egan, you can project the code and the scanning code so that they can join while I try to access the Menti from the share screen. So team, please go to menti.com and type in 54604722. So that we can begin the Menti. We shall join when we have at least a good number of people. So go to menti.com and type 54604722 as your access code. And if anyone is having trouble joining, please let us know. We shall begin in the next 2 minutes. The numbers keep coming in. We are still 14, and I see we are almost 90 of us on this webinar. So can we all proceed to type 54604722 on menti.com?
Sharon, could you say the number again so that I can type it? 540?
54604722.
5460
4722.
4722. So everyone, the number is pasted on the chat, so you can just copy it and then make it easier for you. Thank you.
And while we're joining, please type in your answers. I can see several coming in. We're starting light right now. So you've had the phrase demographic resilience, even in the presentation, even when LACMO was introducing the session. But if we asked you today what that really means for you as an African youth in your country, in your own words, what would you say demographic resilience looks like? So the answers are coming in at like sustained population, peace building skills, community level, change, adaptability. And these are just reflections of how young people are seeing the future in they're seeing their continent's future. So keep the answers coming in. I see we're 34 strong. Just keep them coming in before we move on to our next question. And if you're having trouble, please let the team know. We have Lillian on standby together with LACMO. And you can also scan the code on the far left. We have 9 responses from 38 people. Guys, where are you?
I think some are having challenges accessing. So you need to go to menti.com and put the number that I've shared on the chat. That will open up the link to our Menti. Or alternatively, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen.
So just go to Google, type menti.com, and then type in the code 54604722. I see someone has written the code on their answers. So we're having new words like planning, stability, growth, youth, and we'll also have a chance to discuss this probably at the end of the webinar of what you've written on these answers. We see development, power, survival is really key, especially with what is happening in the world today. So I'm about to close this to go to our next question, but we just seen even from the presentation that resilience has not been defined by just the numbers that Mr. Frederick has just presented, but how young people can navigate the shocks right now, especially in the development world, like conflict, we have wars, we have climate change and lack of access to certain services. So this is just a lived reality of the young people on this webinar. So we're about to close to go to our next question. I hope everyone will participate. So which of these factors do you think most affects population trends in your country? So we're trying to look at gender equality, inequality, we're looking for climate and migration, youth unemployment, health systems, especially in the sexual reproductive health services and access to education. So we were narrowing in on the 4 factors. What do you think is really shaping population change in your country? In Botswana, in Eswatini, in Kenya, Ethiopia, what is shaping population dynamics in your country? So as we can see, team, health systems and youth unemployment is really coming in very strong. We have 20 responses so far. Keep the responses coming, team. We need to get to around 30 so that we can proceed to our next question, just to save on time. So we can see even according to the SWOP report, in regions like East and Southern Africa, we can never see, it's just never one thing. There's gender inequality, there's youth unemployment. And for youth unemployment, it affects decision about marriage, for example, or even starting families, which is a very big lived reality, especially for African youth. And we see how weak health systems affect maternal and reproductive health outcomes for young women across Africa. Colleagues will allow me to just go to the next question just to save on time, but you can also access these mentees on through the whole webinar. So question number 3 is, if you had the microphone at the UN to speak about Africa's population future, what is one message you'd share with them? So we are talking about, imagine if you've been handed the microphone, let's say at the UN General Assembly that's coming up in September, and you're speaking on behalf of young people in Africa. What's the one thing you'd want to say about our population future, especially as young Africans? Invest in youth power, I like that. More responses, I can see we are 56 strong. Let's keep those responses coming. We can see invest in Africa's youth today to secure a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient continent tomorrow. I agree. We shape today's plan for tomorrow. Very true. Include us in caps. Invest in young people and give them the opportunity to lead and address unmet needs for contraception among young people, giving youth a chance to make decisions for themselves. Unity is power. Very true. Let's create strategies that will keep the 25 to 30 engaged. How about the 18 to 35? I think that's the African definition of youth. A very interesting answer over there. Africa's population is not a burden. It's our greatest untapped power. Invest in our youth and you invest in a thriving global future. I like that. Sorry, let me just go back to the next screen. Don't know why it keeps doing that when we... Okay, we'll be able to... Okay, sorry about... Okay, now I can find it. Let's capitalize on empowering young people to economic growth. Much more of these are just investing in us as young people. So basically what is coming out from this response is that investing in youth-led solutions is quite key. So we are not a problem to fix as Africans, but we are the potential that is needed to be tapped to. That's what I'm seeing. And this is why youth inclusion, especially in policy-making spaces, should be an essential for African demographic resilience. So we'll go to the next question. I think this is now my last, colleagues, so please bring on the power in it. This is my second last. By 2030, what should Africa's population story look like? So we are now projecting into the future, and when we get to 2030, what do you hope that the population story in Africa looks like? I'm trying to see whether some of you concentrated on the presentation that Dr. Frederick presented quite 5 minutes ago. So if you were to change that population story and how Africans' demographics looks like, what would it look like? A story of resilience, a story of growth and innovation. Any more? I see we're 60 strong, so keep them coming. By 2030, Africa's population story should reflect empowered youth. Keyword is empowered, gender equality, sustainable growth, access to quality education. Lower fertility rate with higher life expectancy, remain with more young people as they drive development, controlled population and innovations igniting, informed contraception choices, sorry about that. Africa's population story should be one of empowered youth, inequality, urban growth. By 2030, Africa's population story should be one of empowered youth, equitable opportunity, and sustainable growth. Young, empowered thriving continent where population growth is matched by bold investments in education, health, gender equality, be holistic in approaching fertility problems, and a story with an innovative population. Young people's decision to have their families shouldn't be affected by their economic realities. Very true. The Africa we want, the African economies run and led by Africans. And lastly, a story of adaptability, fertility, and policy that empower the youth. Colleagues, allow me to just move to the last question before I hand it over to Lakmo. So what is one action you can take to support demographic resilience in your community? You've given us ideas of how you want 2030 to look like. We're closing it with agencies. So what is one thing you can do to support demographic resilience from where you are? Because at the end of the day, it starts with you back at the community. Mm-hmm. 60 of you on this Menti. Can we have more responses before we close off strong? So far, we have empowerment of youth. How will you empower youth in your community? Promoting youth empowerment through digital literacy and mentorship, supporting homegrown solutions. I really like that, especially on innovations. Raising awareness, information dissemination, very true, especially in an era where we have miscommunication. How do you combat that on social media? Promoting youth education and access to family planning services, awareness creation. Apologies, I can't read this, but I hope our well-able translator will. Empower young people with education and skills to adapt and thrive. We have promoting youth-led dialogues on health, rights, and opportunities. This response says, I will raise awareness among young people, especially girls, about sexual and reproductive health and rights to help them make informed life choices. I really like all of this. Innovative, holistic solutions, especially for comprehensive sexual education. We have advocacy, awareness creation, sensibilization, youth education, decentralizing and localizing sustainable solutions at local levels. So colleagues, as I close, because we're looking at time, I wanted to thank you for bringing your energy on this Menti. Of course, we will share the results with everyone. And your tools. The data may have described the population, but we thank you so much for your voices that will help us define the African story that we want to be told in 2030. Thank you so much. And I close this off by handing it off to Lakmo. Lakmo, over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you everyone for engaging on our Menti. I can see powerful insights. It's clear that young people are not just listening, but they are also leading. So we now want to move into our panel discussions. We are joined with incredible voices from AfriYan, UNFPA, and the Youth Power Hub. So to do so, allow me to invite the AfriYan ESA President, Ms. Angel Babire. She's going to lead this session. Angel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lakmo, for that. Yes, colleagues, good afternoon to all of you. My name again is Angel Babidie. I'm the president of AfriYan ESA, and now we're going to dive into a panel discussion. Like Lakmo mentioned, we are having incredible voices from AfriYan ESA, that is Puvi Hengari, and then UNFPA and the Youth Power Hub. And in this session, we're really just going to explore together how youth are driving demographic resilience, the policy bottlenecks they face, and the innovations that they are leading. So let's dive straight into it. So to Puvi from AfriYan ESA, who's serving as the communications officer, would like to know, Puvi, as a young person leading youth voices at AfriYan and also the Youth Power Hub, how do you see the priorities in the SWOP 2025 report reflecting what young people are asking for on the ground? And if you can also please mention what youth-led platforms like yours are really doing to turn these demands into real action. Puvi, over to you. A brief introduction and then diving into the question. Okay, as we wait for Puvi, I think let's first go to Meron.
Hi.
Okay, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry, my network is a bit of a problem. Good afternoon. Let me switch on my camera. Perhaps you guys will be able to see me. Just a second. Can you see me? Am I audible?
Yes, Puvi, we can see you and we can hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry for that, man. My network is really an issue this side. Good afternoon once again. My name is Puvi Hengari, and I am currently the focal point for communications for AfriYan ESA. So yeah, welcome and thank you for having me on this platform. And yeah, shall I read
Okay,
my?
Puvi, let me re-ask the question. It is
Thank
as a
you.
person, yes, as a person leading youth voices at AfriYan and the Youth Power Hub, how do you see the priorities in the status of the World Population 2025 report, reflecting what young people are asking for on the ground? And if you can also share more about what youth-led platforms like yours are doing to turn these demands into real action.
All right, thank you for the question. So, from our perspective as AfriYan ESA and as a partner to Youth Power Hub, the State of the World Population report aligns strongly with the key demands that young people in ESA are voicing on the ground, particularly around the bodily autonomy, comprehensive sexual education, gender equality, and of course, demanding for youth-friendly services. This report, not only that, but when we speak on centering bodily autonomy, this basically means that this is a world where young people can make informed decisions on their body, specifically in SRHR being the center, and also creating SRHR advocacy. And also, when we are addressing structural inequalities, we are talking about the socioeconomic, like the poverty and the political barriers that restricts access to young people, especially the minority groups in our different communities where we find ourselves. And also, this report also highlights the importance of basically data and accountability, which technically translates that we need to program our programs based on evidence. We need evidence-based programming that supports and answers the demands of young people. And as AfriYan, we are actively engaging with national and regional policy spaces such as the AU, the SADC, and the line ministries in our various countries to ensure that the voices of young people shape SRHR strategies and budget. And we also track commitments such as the ESA commitments, such as the FP 2030 commitments, the ICPT plus 25 commitments, and the African Union Charter. Not only that, we also provide capacity strengthening and leadership development where young advocates and
and create colleagues. English is not my first language, so bear with me. And create peer educators that lead community dialogues and influence decision makers. Like a perfect example is back at home in Namibia, like our youngest parliamentarian is from AfriYan, Namibia. So, I mean, that's a good achievement for young people. We also we intentionally foster partnerships with feminist networks, disability right groups, and LGBTQ plus movements and traditional leaders to ensure that the youth advocacy is inclusive and sustainable, and that no one is left behind. Not only that, but African country chapters are translating global frameworks, and these frameworks are the S amendments, the ICPD, the FP 2030. They're translating these frameworks into local action plan, aligning with the national development agendas of their countries, where basically we are transforming policies into action. So yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Puvi, for those deep insights. I really like that you've given what you're doing at both grassroots level, national level, and also regional level, and also really breaking down these commitments for young people so that they can hold their leaders accountable. But then I also like that you hinted on data and accountability, leading with evidence-based programming and policies. So thank you so much. And on to our next panelist, Meron. Meron, we know that many young leaders in our region are really trying to figure out how to meaningfully engage with the concept of demographic resilience. And I know that very often this feels technical or out of reach. So from your experience, how can we begin to break down this concept through the SWOP 2025 lens, but in a way that speaks to young people's realities and really make sure that we are not only talking about demographic shifts, but actually responding to both the opportunities and the challenges? Meron, over to you.
Thank you very much, Angel. This is a very complicated question. I hope I will be able to respond it. First of all, it's an honor to be with you, all the senior and new members of the Youth Champion in Youth Power Hub. And I would like to appreciate the conveners, YACT and AfriYan Eastern Southern Africa chapter for this opportunity. Angel, as you know, at least in UNFP, we very much believe that young people are the present and future leaders of our commitment. And I remember this was one of the issues that we discussed in the recent workshop that we had for AfriYan and AfriYan leaders. We believe that your energy, your passion, and commitment are the driving force behind Africa we all dream of. Whether it is high fertility, low fertility, first of all, the whole package of youth development within Africa, and then the transformation of Africa is also relying on you guys, the youth leaders, while we are phasing out from the leadership phase and when we are handing over the continent to you. I mean, the transition has to happen when we are in position and when you are taking over as well. And we really appreciate your work as UNFPA. And at the same time, we would like to challenge you while working beside you on a journey that truly matters for achieving universal access to sexual reproductive health. As my colleague, Dr. Fred mentioned, it's not only about high fertility or it's not about low fertility, the whole package of access to sexual reproductive health, and then the choice to young people when they would like to get married, when they would like to have contraceptives, if they can have contraceptives, if they can have healthy sexual life. First of all, the information and then the service is very required. And that is what the universal access for sexual reproductive health entails. Then if we are agreeing on this, then why are you mattering? Why are the young leaders matter in this space, in the universal access to sexual and reproductive health space? So universal access to sexual and reproductive health is not only a policy goal, it is a promise that every person, especially every young person, can access the health services they need without barrier. You are joining from different countries in Africa. I'm also from Africa, from Ethiopia. You can imagine the kind of barriers young people are facing in this continent, in this region, to access any health service for that matter. And then when it's sexual and reproductive health services, you can list of all sorts of barriers which shouldn't have happened. So that is compromising rights, and that is compromising choice. And all the issues that Dr. Fred mentioned earlier. And if we are talking about universal health coverage, and within universal health coverage, universal access to sexual and reproductive health services, we cannot fulfill it without young leaders. Without your decision, without your engagement, there is no way that we as adults will continue to make decisions that will impact on the lives of young people. When I say as a minister or as a president or as a faith-based organization leader or as a teacher, as a school principal, name it, if I suggest that for the current use in the school or out of school, that comprehensive sexuality education is not required, who am I to make that decision? Did I consult with young people? Did they confirm to me that comprehensive sexuality information is not required, is not culture appropriate, or is it not age appropriate? All this consultation should happen with young people, but we keep on deciding for young people, which is really making so many challenges, and we are still facing high HIV prevention, high prevalence of HIV in this continent, high teenage pregnancy in this continent, high child marriage in this continent. I was really even giving all the figures last time when we had the conference with AfriYan leaders. Why? Because we keep on deciding for young people that the service is not required for adolescents. Information is not required for young people. It will increase promiscuity. It's not aligning to our culture. Whose culture? So this is why you really matter in terms of championing SRHR, in terms of leading SRHR, in terms of being in the discussion room when decisions are made by adults, decision makers, those who are in programs, those who are in politics, those who are in the religion and tradition space. So we have to keep on challenging them, and this has to really change. So when we commit as Africa for universal access to SRHR, it means ending unmet need for family planning among young people, ending unintended pregnancies among young people, ending the devastating impacts of HIV and other communicable diseases, ensuring every young person, wherever he, she is, whoever she, he is, whatever their sexuality is, that they have access to SRHR information and services, and their SRHR needs are met because they are basic health needs. So this is what we will be standing for with you as young champions. That's why your engagement is very important. And then I'm sure I have already mentioned some of the statistics, and you have heard so many unpleasant statistics when it comes to SRHR and youth development in our continent, unfortunately. And beyond these statistics, we have to really realize these statistics are people. They are real stories behind the statistics. So when I talk about unintended pregnancy, you can think of so many friends, you can think of your sisters, you can think of your colleagues, you can think of your classmates. These are people, like these are our nations and citizens who are suffering because they didn't have information and services when they need it. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It is 2025. This has to change. And for this, you will play significant role. How? You can hold stakeholders accountable, including governments, parents, teachers, and all of us. You have to challenge misconceptions and discrimination, especially those based on age and gender. You cannot be, there is a say in the Bible, maybe Angel, you might know it, that we are not in the dark, but we are for the light. I'm not a good Christian, but there is a verse that I very much remember. So you are not with those who are running misconceptions, with those who are running discrimination or enforcing discrimination. You are against them, and you are always standing for those who are left behind. You are always standing for all sexualities, all young people in all their diversities. That is what championing is for me, at least. You can organize movements that demand equity and quality care. And you can educate and empower your peers, because most of you are senior in the space and there are emerging young people coming and joining your space. So you can educate them and empower them. And then you can continue innovating and creating new paths forward. So I can imagine also the challenge and the strengths that you need through obstacles and frustrations. It's frustrating to be in this space because the change that you want to see are not coming automatically. So that also needs some kind of courage and strength and consistency. Always keeping your goal in sight, which is the fulfillment of sexual reproductive health and rights for all young people. I would have said a lot, and this is seriously my passion, but Angel, I don't want to take all the time. Over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Maren, really for dissecting that and letting us know. I really like that you talked about how universal health coverage cannot be fulfilled without young people. And, you know, young people must also meaningfully take up these spaces so that they, make decisions for themselves and not have adults continue to make decisions for them, that adults cannot keep on deciding for young people. Young people must take up these spaces to ensure that their needs are met. And I also particularly like that you talked about young people in all their contexts and all their diversities. Maybe before we go to the next panelist, I would like to just in a minute ask how we often say, that young people are not a homogeneous group. And maybe in your experience, you can tell us, we know that there's been efforts to push for meaningful youth participation, but in your experience, what more must be done to really ensure that youth engagement, especially in these demographic resilience efforts that we are talking about, really includes young people in their diversities and contexts. It really includes young people in rural areas, in marginalized communities, underserved communities. For example, especially adolescent girls, young mothers, young people with disabilities, young people who are part of, the LGBTQI plus community. What, in just maybe a minute, you can let us know what more can be done?
Thank you, Angel. Yeah, that is one of the biggest challenges that we are always facing when we are saying meaningful youth engagement. And I had also this discussion with Lillian and Sharon and Faith and yourself, Angel. We are always trying to navigate through this meaningful youth engagement because, I mean, this is a very useful continent and we have so many young people, and the diversity is also huge, as you mentioned it. There are young people with disability, there are young people with HIV, there are young people in rural areas, in humanitarian crisis, in a conflict zone, whatnot. Like, it's huge demand, and we keep on engaging a few young people that managed to be in the space. But I always wonder how we will be able really to speak to a young woman in Ethiopia, a young woman in Kenya, young women in Uganda, Mozambique, from the rural areas. Are we really speaking for them? Do we know what they are looking for? Do we know their needs? when they are already in marriage at age 18 or at age 20? Are we really catering for their needs when they are in humanitarian crisis and when they cannot even access basic needs like menstrual hygiene products, when they are with disability in rural area and young women in humanitarian crisis? Imagine this young woman, she's with disability, she is in a humanitarian crisis, she's from rural area. Imagine how many information and service are passing this young woman, and we have so many of this young women in the continent. Are we really catering for them? So I'm always thinking about representation. We cannot definitely access millions of young people, unfortunately. I wish if we can, but at least when I stand for young people, or Lilian stand for young people, or Angel, or all those who join here that I might know their name one by one in the future, that I was not able to call them by name. When I speak on behalf of young people, who do I speak for? What kind of information gathering mechanisms can I use so that I will be really representing young people from this areas of life, from those who are left behind? Am I really speaking on behalf of them, or it's just my knowledge, or it's just what I managed to expose myself, and then my information is also limited to only what I know? So from time to time, we have to do mapping, we have to speak with them. When Google survey or any mechanism of online platform is accessible, we can use that. But we know in most rural areas, this is not accessible. So in that case, do I have to go there and speak with some of them? Or at least when a member of parliaments are speaking from that specific province or from that specific region, at least they should be able to speak with young people, because they have more access than we have to speak with their constituency. So all this will matter on how representative and on how meaningful we are in terms of really engaging young people from different sectors. Over, Angel, I'm sorry for taking.
Okay. No, thank you so much, really, Mary. And I'm really glad that you've hinted on that, because we have a couple of youth champions. We have a couple of, members that are coming in from all across East and Southern Africa. And I know it's a question that very many of them also battle with. So I'm very glad that you've spoken to that. And at least now they know that in every room they go to, they'll ask them their question of, who do I speak for? And am I really making sure that their needs and challenges are met and their voices are truly heard? So on to our next panelist, our next and last panelist, Trevor. Trevor, we know that through your work with the Youth Power Hub and youth networks across Africa, you've seen how conversations on population dynamics can be brought closer to young people. So would like to know, what are some practical steps you've seen young people take to turn these conversations into real community level impact? And more importantly, how do we move from policy talk to actual youth-led implementation on the ground, especially in contexts where systems do not make space for that? And Trevor, you can give a brief introduction and then dive into the question. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Angel, for the question. I'm happy and excited to be part of this. My name is Trevor Wahile. I am a board member for Botswana National Youth Council and the chairperson of the Commonwealth Youth Peace Ambassador Network. And also definitely a Youth Power Hub advocate. I'd say I think before I even go further to answer your question, I'd say, I think I was looking at the theme of this year's World Population Day, and I would say I really love the first part where it says people, power, and potential. And for me, it represents the young people of the African continent, and I'm really excited to deliver on the question that you asked me. And I'd say it's an honor to be part of this important dialogue as a Youth Power Hub advocate, especially on the day where we shine a spotlight of the role of young people in shaping demographic resilience. Today, we are not only reflecting on the numbers and the trends, we are acknowledging the power of young people in transforming policies and statistics into real community-level change, whether it's addressing population dynamics, advancing health equality and equity, or strengthening governance. Youth are no longer waiting for the future. I believe and have seen we are building it now. In my work with Youth Power Hub and its affiliated networks, I have seen firsthand and experienced young people driving practical, scalable solutions from the initiating peer-led SRHR education in unserved communities to leveraging digital platforms for civic engagement and climate awareness. I believe youth are turning big ideas into bold actions. What's most important and powerful is how these actions are intersectional. We are not addressing population health or governance in silos. They are all interlinked. We are recognizing that to build a demographic resilience, we must also ensure access to right-based SRHR education, economic opportunities, peace-building skills, and youth-centered policy spaces. One of the most important lessons we have learned is that youth-led implementation starts with trust. Trust in our capacity, trust in our creativity, trust in our lived realities. Moving from policy to action means resourcing young people, not just beneficiaries, but co-designers and implementers of change. I believe it's something that we really are making strides in, and I've seen how collaboration has been really important in the past few years with the Youth Power Hub. We've seen investments being made in young people and to give them the chance to lead as they can. And I believe today we serve as a reminder and a full call to action. And I saw something within the Mentimeter also that I really liked as we were young people were commenting in it. It says invest in youth power, and I could not agree more in that powerful word to say invest in youth power, and not in just the speeches that young people are giving time and again, but in system and funding and in leadership pipelines that reflect our true potential as Africans. And I would say context is always important. We must see actions, we must see programs that also speak to the context of the African youth. And I really loved also when Maron was mentioning that when do we get to hear the realities of that young mother who's in a village, of that young mother, of a young girl who was married at an early age, of young people with disabilities. And I must say, I think those are my few words to you, Angel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Trevor, for those insights. Thank you so much for talking about the intersectionality. And thank you so much to all the panelists for this powerful conversation. I'm very sure that it has reminded us that youth are not just the future, but they are the now. And I believe that the journey to demographic resilience really starts with us. And it also continues with bold and inclusive and intersectional action. So thank you so much to everyone who's been part of this. I'm going to give the floor back to Lakmo.
Thank you very much, Angel, and thank you to all our panelists, Trevor, Ovi, and Maron. Thank you for helping us explore how us as young people are driving demographic resilience, and also touching on the bottlenecks and also the innovations that we are making as young people. Thank you very much. So I can see you've been posting some questions in the Q&A box. You can continue doing so because now want to open for such questions. Some of them have been addressed. Can you hear me now?
Lakmo,
Can
we
you hear?
can't. No, your volume is quite low.
Oh, now.
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, so all right, thank you very much. So thank you for all the questions that you're raising in the Q&A sections, and some of those questions have been addressed, including when Meron was responding to the question during the panel discussion. She responded to one of the questions in the Q&A, and also Sharon is responding to other questions. So if you have any other questions that you have, this is the opportunity for us to engage, to share your thoughts, or to ask any of the panelists any questions or anything that you want. So this is the opportunity. Let's keep the questions coming in the Q&A and also in the chat box. So it might not be a question, it might be a comment. It's also welcome. You can actually do that in the comment section. So maybe just to reflect on some of the questions that have already been posted. So there is this is ironic that young people in the developed world, desire to have more children but are constrained economically. So for countries in Africa aspiring to move to higher income status, what should be done at macro level to avoid this dilemma? And also we have other questions that came in from Abdul. He was asking what is the importance of youth in the demographic resilience. I think those are some of the things that have been responded to. What link does it establish between population and development? What is demographic resilience, etc.? So if you have any other things that you can add, or Meron, if you want to add something to these questions that have been asked by young people, you have this opportunity to do so. Meron, are you there?
Yes, Lakura, I'm there. Can you repeat the questions, please? I think your voice was interrupted, or is it my connection? Just at least one or two of them so that I will be able to reflect.
So some of them you have already answered during your presentation in the panel, but there's this one from an anonymous attendee which says, this is ironic that people in the developed world desire to have more children, but are constrained economically. So for countries in Africa aspiring to move to higher income status, what should be done at macro level to avoid this dilemma?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. I think Dr. Fred has also mentioned that once upon a time there was terminology that we used to have in sexual reproductive health, saying family planning or population control, because in a way that we thought population will compromise development, and then so it has to be managed. But now completely the narrative has changed. It has to be choice-based. It has to be information-based. It's up to Meron, it's up to Lakmo, it's up to this anonymous participant to decide based on current information, based on current evidence, based on my personal situation. Do I need to have a family? Do I need to get married? How many kids can I have? How many kids can I afford? If I have a kid or two or three or 5 or 10, can I send them to school? Can I afford to send them to school? Can they also have access to quality information and to quality education? so that they will cherish, so that they will support themselves, so that they will support their family, so that they support the community, so that they support the nation. So we are not in a position to decide for anyone as a nation, as individuals, or as families. It's up to the individual to decide what she needs. That is what we are promoting now. But the issue is to have that kind of informed decision. Information should be accessible. When I don't know if contraceptive is available, if at age 18 or at age 15 or at age 12, if I have sex, I would be pregnant. That information is not provided to me. But I fall in love, or I have some kind of infatuation with someone, or I had sight love with someone. This is natural. This is human feeling, isn't it? But no one told me that I can be HIV positive, that I can be pregnant, that if I'm pregnant, this kind of services are available. If you're sexually active, this kind of services are. Nothing is being said. So as a young woman, I will be exposed to unintended pregnancy when I'm not ready to have a child. That child will be a burden to me. That child will be a burden to my family, who is not even able to support me. I'm getting another child to this family. I'm getting another child to the community. I'm bringing another child that the nation cannot afford. That is what we are trying to do by not allowing young people to have the right information, which is mostly what we call comprehensive sexuality education, what we call comprehensive SRHR services. So in that absence, I mean, we are deciding for the young people, which is not the right thing. So this is the dilemma that we are having now. It is a choice, it is the decision of the individual, but it has to be informed. When the information is not available, the decision will be also compromised. The decision will be unfavoring me and unfavoring my family, unfavoring the nation. So this is where we are as Africa. When the other nation is taking it to the maximum level, we are not even having the basic information that I need to have to make the decision on my own life. So this is what we have to really advocate for. I don't know, Lakmor, if I responded it, but this is what I think in terms of that question. Over.
Thank you very much, Meron. You responded very well. And thank you all for your questions that are coming. Keep them coming. If we fail to respond to those questions, I think we'll also forward those questions to our panelists and also to our facilitators, Dr. Fred, who just left, so that he can also respond, and then we can share the response with everyone. So thank you, everyone. Once again, as we wrap up, let's remember that demographic resilience is not just about numbers, it's about people, and us as young people, we are at the heart of it. So let's take today's energy and insight beyond this webinar, whether it's through advocacy that we do on a daily basis, innovation, or a community action. Let's always remember that our voices as young people, they matter. So don't stop here. We need to start this conversation in our countries, in our communities, in our areas where we operate in. After this, it's also important that you share what you've learned today on social media. You can actually use the hashtag demographic resilience and also tag Youth Power Hub so that we can follow some of those posts. And also, you can also leverage on the already existing programs that you are doing, or start a youth-led initiative that addresses the issues of population and development challenges. And one thing that is also very much important for us as young leaders is to hold our leaders accountable, asking how these policies that are there in our various countries are supporting young people's potential. So let's stay connected with the Youth Power Hub and also with YACT, with AfriYan, with UNFPA, with UNESCO for upcoming opportunities. So you are not just the future, you are the now, and let's turn this momentum into a movement. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to our organizers, and every participant. Let's keep building and keep connecting and keep powering change. Thank you, everyone, and this marks the end of our webinar. So Egan, if you can play some music as we leave.
Let's dance in style, let's dance for a while. Heaven can wait, we're only watching the skies. Hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Are you gonna drop the bomb or not? Let us die young or let us live forever. We don't have the power, but we never say never. Sitting in a sandpit, life is a short trip. The music's for the sad man. Can you imagine when this race is won? Turn our golden faces into the sun. Praising our leaders, we're getting in tune. The music's played by the madman. Forever young, I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever? Forever, forever, forever young. I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever? Forever young. Some are like water, some are like the heat. Some are a melody and some are the beat. Sooner or later they all will be gone. Why don't they stay young? It's so hard to get on to without a cause. I don't want to perish like a fleeting horse. It's like diamonds in the sun, and diamonds are forever. So many adventures could